And we're on. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the very first episode of the Door Unhinged podcast. Joining me today is a very special guest. We have Odin from Odin Makes right here.
Hello there. How's it going?
Good. Thank you for joining. I
Excellent.
appreciate it.
You bet. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I enjoy doing this. So,
Oh, no, I appreciate it. You responded fast. I was just like, hey, he's got 400,000 followers, one comment asking him to come on. And then you're right there. I'm like, oh.
I actually do try to pay attention to a lot of my comments. I do get a lot of the requests out of my comments, and yeah, I try to be on top of that as a YouTube guy. I'm not as much as I think I am, but I try to.
Well, those YouTube comments can be, they can be otherworldly at times.
Yeah.
So, so Odin here has created dozens of different prop weapons from different fictional worlds, including most recently the gravity gun from Half-Life 2. He's also made Kratos' Frost Axe from God of War, one of my personal favorites, and even the Infinity Gauntlet from Endgame, which stands at over 7 million views. And that's
Yes.
always the crazy thing because, like, I'm sure because I draw, and it's like the thing that you like the most might not get the most views. So even if the gauntlet maybe wasn't your favorite thing, it spikes to 7 million, and you're like, huh, what did I do differently there?
Right. Well, with that particular one, I can answer it. I picked the right pop culture icon to use that was super popular for a number of years because it definitely got a huge boost every time. I had done the Gauntlet prior to even Infinity War coming out.
Oh,
And so
wow.
every time the new movie came out or something new for Thanos was being teased, I would get a huge bump in views on that. And then when Infinity War came out, it took off, as did Stormbreaker. And then
Hmm.
for Endgame, it took off again.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it looked worlds. It's good. It looks worlds better than Loot Crate had this oven mitt Infinity Gauntlet that they got
Right.
recalled because it was setting fire.
Yeah, if you're going to make an oven mitt, it kind of needs to be, a little thermally insulating there. Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I didn't even consider this until I watched the video. You really can't snap your fingers when that's the only unrealistic thing that happens in Infinity War was that you can't snap your fingers with the gauntlet.
Pretty much, yeah. Have you ever successfully snapped your fingers wearing anything other than maybe like latex gloves? I mean, you wear any kind of
Yeah, for
glove
real.
with a body to it, and you can clap, but
I almost wish I would have been less sad if Infinity War's ending stayed because I would have rather had everyone else stay dead and just keep Tony, and then
oh,
than having it reversed.
having it reversed. Right, okay. Oh, sure.
I think, although I did tear up with the Spider-Man scene. To viewers who haven't watched Infinity War, I apologize for spoilers. It is an old film now, though.
It is, yeah. It's been around a little bit.
Yeah. So I don't know. I barely know how to put my phone case on my phone. So how do you look at a blade or the gravity gun, and then your brain just says, "Oh, this is common sense. I'll just put foam here and this here, and I'll just assemble it that way." Like, is it? It's so it's just that much common knowledge to you. How long have you been doing this?
Well, you're saying common sense and common knowledge, which I think applies to a wide variety of people. But for me, yeah, in a way, it is kind of that quick and easy. I'm a very visual person.
Hmm.
I'm fairly spatially oriented. Not, I'm not going to say I'm like a fantastic. I'm horrible at organizing, but fairly good at like packing a storage unit.
Hmm.
Um, so oftentimes when looking at things like that, I see first and foremost the overall basic shape. Now, yeah, I've got the gravity gun. It's got a funky shaped box in the back. It's got a
Hmm.
cylinder in the middle, and then it's got the three prongs that come out the front. And then I start breaking down the shapes that go on top of that. It's very similar to doing, or at least I would think, doing 3D graphics, doing something 3D on the computer, where you're going to break it down into simpler polygons and work on it from there. I kind
Hmm.
of do the same thing, but I'm looking at shapes, general sizes, things like that, and that kind of works for all the different props I do. And then it ends up
Oh,
being
wow.
details on top of it.
That's cool. Yeah, I saw the CG that was projected in front of you during the
Ah,
that one.
right. One of the few times I've used CG. Yes.
Yeah, I've actually never played Half-Life though.
No big deal. I did. I played the snot out of it and all the other games because I was hauling my computer around with a giant 19-inch CRT monitor to the LAN parties when Half-Life was new, and you had to physically get together in order to do the death matches. So I
Oh
would
wow.
haul my computer to a friend's house, and we'd sit around and eat pizza and drink, Dr.
Yeah.
Pepper until 3 in the morning playing Half-Life and Counter-Strike Beta.
That sounds like a good time. It's one of my favorite. I think one of the greatest pleasures in life is just staying up really late until you're like dead tired, playing or watching something you really enjoy. And it's like
Yes.
and what's cool about Half Life is similar to the new God of War and even the movie Birdman. Half Life is all done in one shot. Like the game starts and it just keeps going. It's I
Right.
think at least one of them is. Are both of them like that? It's like
Well,
there's Half Life 2 and then Episode 1 and 2 or something.
yeah, there's almost a running joke that the internet wants Half-Life 3 and they haven't made an episode 3. But
Yeah,
they've
they
done episode 2, part 2, and now they're starting
yeah.
with Half-Life Alex VR, and so we'll get an episode 2 of that. They're just
Yeah.
everything they can to avoid 3.
Yeah.
Um,
Valve can't count to three.
for You had Wolfenstein and you had Doom as some of the first real first-person shooter games. Half-Life was the first one that had the cinematics as part of the in-game.
Hmm.
So as you're running around and you run into the scientist, you could actually walk around the scientist as he's telling you stuff that's important to the game.
Oh
Everything else
man.
always did cutscenes, or even was just a simple a picture with text that would appear
Oh
telling you what the story is. So that was the really big innovation thing that Half-Life did. Other than that, I've heard it called it's a game on rails, which it kind of is. It's
yeah.
like a toy train track. You go in this direction, and you can interact with what you see as you go past it. But
Right.
it isn't open world.
Yeah, and again, there's strengths to either one. Like there's a time and place for open world, and I love open world. But
Oh yeah,
when you put the player on this track, you have a lot of cool opportunities to do story things because you are controlling the flow at which they experience the story. You get to make some really cool moments. I can't imagine how cool it was because you have cutscenes and you have gameplay. They're such different constructs, and then to be playing Half Life at that time and to see them kind of blur together like that, that must be really awesome.
it was really awesome. Yeah. Which it's fun to look at. I was actually playing it again the other night. It's really fun to look at it, and I was going, "Oh wow, yeah, this. I bet my phone can render this."
You can,
It's still fun. It's nostalgic for me, so it's fun.
yeah.
This is the first Half-Life. Yeah, Half-Life 2 still I think looks fine, but first Half-Life very polygonal, and whatever, it's fine.
Yeah. It's weird. Like I'm starting to feel nostalgic about Xbox 360 games and I'm like, is that allowed?
Absolutely. It doesn't take too long to get nostalgic. I've had people try to claim movies are classics within like 5 or 8 years
Yeah.
because it was just important to them,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Which in a way still sounds like a long time. I'm a little older, so that doesn't sound like as much of a long time to me anymore. Um, so it all depends on how important it is to a
Yeah.
person. To sort of be nostalgic and calling a 360 game a classic, sure, why not? PlayStation does it as a marketing ploy. PlayStation Classics, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. I'm nostalgic about stuff that happened a week ago.
Well, there you go.
What's it like so you've been a creator for how long now? Like
Uh,
because I mean, I know how
well,
old your I think the Blue Shell Mario Kart video is your oldest.
the oldest on my own channel, yeah. And then there was about a year prior to that, I was working on another channel called DIY Prop Shop, where I
Oh.
was the guest host about every 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we
All
just
right.
rotate. And that's where I got my first real taste for doing exactly because it was very much the same format.
Hmm.
I changed things so I could actually just make up my own, have my own channel, and there wouldn't be conflict. And the people at DIY Prop Shop didn't care. They were all, yeah, go for it, because the writing was on the wall that that company was going under. They were
Oh yeah, that must
not
have been
managing
sad.
themselves. So yeah, it was, and it
Yeah.
is, and they did, and it stinks. I've still got friends from it though. I still talk to the other hosts and talk to the producer. So
Yeah, that's cool.
that's good.
I mean, look at game trailers where they broke down and then they became the easy allies afterwards, all of the former employees. But
Right.
what I was gonna ask was, YouTube is always well, YouTube's a corporation, and sometimes they're out of touch. Sometimes they don't. They have the constantly changing algorithm. They're constantly changing their policies, and it might not benefit independent creators. So, what is it like
Right.
to have a steady stream of income from YouTube and have these constantly changing rules and policies? How is that? Is that hard to adapt to? Is that frustrating? Or
It is a little frustrating, and yeah, it is. I am doing full-time YouTube now. I have since October.
oh,
Uh,
congratulations!
Thank you. Yeah, it's great.
That's awesome.
It is very freeing and it's very nice to not have to go and punch the clock and not spend time in traffic.
Right.
But as far as how to be or what's it like being a creator, and that's my revenue stream, the easiest way to compare it, it's like driving around with your needle on empty in your gas gauge all the time. Like, okay, I've got this, all right, and I can make it to this next appointment. Okay, I'm good. And then, well, I don't have a sponsor, so am I gonna be able to make my bills next month? Well, maybe if I skim on this, and then, oh, I got a sponsor. Good, I'll catch up, and then
Raid Shadow
it's
Legends.
yeah,
They get
Raid Shadow Legends.
they get
Yes.
everyone.
Oh, they do. And that's like my third or fourth one for them that I've done too.
Hmm. It
Kind of
looks
like
like
Vikings.
it's a. Oh, is that the one where you put the helmet on and you're
That's the
swinging
one
the
where I put
sword?
the helmet on. Yeah, Vikings, War Clan. That's right. Odin's telling you. Yeah.
Oh, and the oh, you had the coffee one, and it had an amazing segue. It was like I let my guard down for a second, and you were talking about coffee instead of whatever weapon you were working on. It was so funny.
Thank you. I've been trying. The dark saber. I got some really good comments on the segue for that one too, because that was a VPN dash lane,
Oh yeah.
and so I talked about working on the dark saber at the Dallas Makerspace in Dallas, Texas. And then I get in the airport and I check my bag, and of course my bag gets searched by the TSA because there's this weird dark saber handle in it.
Hmm.
But I was safe because I was using Dashlane as I waited my layovers. It was
Hmm.
way better in the video. But
It must be hard. It must be hard for you to go through an airport though.
right. Yes, it's interesting to not specifically say what it is. It's like, oh, what's in the bag? It's like Rick and Morty's portal gun. No, it is a teleportation device.
I don't know why you're taking a plane then.
Right, exactly. No, I usually just tell them it's camera gear, and they don't care. But I check. If I'm traveling with any of the props, generally I just check them, unless I know it's one that doesn't have anything metal in it and it's going to scan fine. Like I've taken Mjolnir with me in my backpack as a carry-on, and no one cares because
That's
it goes right through the X-ray machine. It doesn't show anything.
You must rub your hands together and get excited whenever there's like a movie coming out with it's like has medieval and weapons because keep up with what's current and stuff. So if they, I think there's a Lord of the Rings miniseries coming out on HBO. So I guess around that
Right.
time you would go ahead and make some sort of iconic weapon from that series.
Yeah, people have asked for Sting and for orc helms and stuff for forever. And yeah, I probably will do something Lord of the Rings when that comes. I think it's Amazon, right? When that comes out. So definitely, I try to pay attention to that. Like I know the Black Widow movie's coming up because Marvel's been really good to me.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh yeah, they got the I think it's called the Eternals. I think they have the guy
yeah.
Kit Harington, the guy who played Jon Snow. I think he's gonna play like some sort of medieval superhero. He'll probably have a sword you can make for sure.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that'd be cool. So I do try to watch that. I'm actually not sure what's coming out right now outside of stuff on TV. Like I know season 7 for the Clone Wars is coming up on Disney Plus.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm seriously looking at doing Rex's helmet because that's been asked for a number of times. And then the video games. And recently I started trying to do more anime stuff, and that's actually been working well for me because
Oh
I
yeah.
hadn't really done it before. So it's a whole new crowd coming in, and my numbers as far as subscribers and views on a number of the anime videos have are starting to do like Marvel numbers did for me a couple years ago. So I'll be
Oh yeah.
doing, yep, I'll be doing some more anime for sure.
Yeah, that's a huge chunk of the YouTube population right there. That invites a whole new steady stream of people.
Right. And that
Except,
was always
yeah.
a plan with the channel was to bounce around. I didn't want to be, I am the Star Wars prop guy.
Hmm.
It was, because it's actually something the DIY prop shop did. It was, especially when I was starting out, nobody was looking for how Odin made anything, right? Or who this Odin guy is. But how do I make Samus's gun from Metroid, or how do I make, the right-handed Doom from Hellboy? Those things people are looking for, and they would find my channel that way. And so I've constantly tried to move around with different genres and different, video games, movies, TVs. I've done something just from a comic book. I did something from Magic the Gathering. So,
Oh, and then
just different.
some of these like sci-fi anime series they have like swords that float out of their hilts and stuff, and it's like, I can't make that unfortunately.
Right, gonna happen.
Yeah.
Even the magic, because there's a magic trick with an invisible string where you make cards kind of float between your hands. I think the sword still just weighs too much. That's not going to work.
That pays to bounce around. At the same time, you can bounce around, and then there's also those channels. There's literally a channel called Star Wars Only, and they
Yeah.
just and that's all they do. There's definitely a benefit to that. You can get really specific and like talk about obscure topics that maybe aren't often covered. If you had to dedicate your channel to only making weapons from one thing for the rest of your life, what do you think you would choose?
Wow. It might actually go ahead and be Star Wars because I am actually a big, long time Star Wars fan. But the funny thing is that would be almost a lot. That'd be a lot of guns.
Someone managed to make like a proto saber where like in the old republic they didn't have full on lightsabers, but making like an actual lightsaber hilt that could project a beam of light that's hot enough to sustain itself like that, it's like impossible.
Right. So that would probably be that because that would have enough that I could actually do it. And I know there's a couple of guys that do it, and I wasn't trying to pick on Star Wars when I said it. It's just easy to say.
Oh yeah.
Uh, I've actually just enjoyed sci-fi in general. So it's not like I only like one fandom. I grew up watching the original series of Star Trek, and then oh, here's Star Wars. This is fantastic. Oh no, here's Battlestar Galactica. The original one with Richard Hatch and Dirk Benedict, and I enjoyed that. And Space 1999. That's all these weird old sci-fi. I just enjoyed anything that was sci-fi,
Yeah.
and so I'm still kind of there. The fantasy, not as much. I enjoy good medieval and I enjoy good fantasy stories. It's easy for me to enjoy them. But as far as a go-to, I had to pick, it's going to be sci-fi or even post-apocalyptic sci-fi are some of my favorite storylines because I like the
Hmm.
distressed, weathered stuff that they do.
I never drift towards one genre really. And the thing is, I never really watched television until Breaking Bad. I started watching Breaking Bad. I was enthralled by it. I was absolutely captivated. And then I watched Game of
Yeah.
Thrones. And what really took me under from Game of Thrones was I liked how the characters were vulnerable. I like how they had flaws, they had agendas, they were constantly trying to one up each other. I heard The Expanse was similar, where they had characters with like political intrigue. So for me, it's like I might not seek out a specific genre, but as long as the characters are interesting, it will be something that I watch. Have you ever seen
Yep.
Breaking Bad?
Yes. I've
Oh
seen
yeah.
Breaking Bad. Enjoyed it. I enjoyed nearly all of Game of Thrones. I watched them all, but it's like, yeah, this is real
Ne-
disappointing. Uh,
season 8 is just it's just fan fiction. It's crazy.
yeah.
It's
And I felt that way when Doctor Who. There was Russell T Davies brought Doctor Who back with Christopher Eccleston, right?
mhm.
No, what, 10 years ago now? It's been a while. Well, after he got done telling the stories he wanted to tell, and he was working with Stephen Moffat, who'd been doing Doctor Who forever as well. Um, Russell left, and then Stephen was the sole showrunner. And yeah, it became very fan fiction. Watching it, it's like, wow, this is what happened. The pieces are missing.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like it's hard to place at first, but there's just a piece of the soul that's not there. It's like
Yeah.
season 8 is like when I watch season 8 of Game of Thrones, I feel like they were like, "Oh crap, I have to use the bathroom. Let's finish up this series as soon as we can so we can use the bathroom real fast." It's like they wanted to hurry on to something else. That's the tone that I got. It's
Absolutely. I think at the time the guys I think were excited about moving on to doing their own Star Wars trilogy. Let's come back
and
around to that,
yeah,
right? Definitely got the feeling that they were wrapping this thing up just to get it done.
yeah,
Because my understanding, HBO was like, no, you have as many episodes as you want. And they're like, nah, 11's fine.
yeah. I'm sorry for listeners who don't watch Game of Thrones, and this doesn't matter, but I do have to point out Jamie was my favorite character. I loved his transformation from this awful incestuous person, and then in
Uh,
season 3 he goes back and saves not Bran, he saves Brienne from the bear in the pit, and he slowly
right?
becomes this better person. And then at the very end, they just make him evil again, and I'm like, come on.
Yeah. And then it practically gets an off-screen death. Yeah.
Yeah,
Not quite, but it was just there's a scene in the end of Mandalorian, like who the characters are doesn't
oh,
matter,
oh, I
but
love
basically
Mandalorian.
it's like the horrible '80s ending of like any Airwolf episode where the vehicle goes behind the mountain and you see an explosion and the heroes in the foreground they look at each other and they go, yeah, that totally worked, we're fine, want to get coffee? And then, oh gee, surprise, the guy survived the crash because he didn't go
Yeah.
check.
Yeah, it's like in Dragon Ball Z whenever the dust settles, he isn't dead.
Yeah.
The explosion did nothing.
Did nothing. Right.
Oh man, it's
So so there was that, and like the third episode of The Mandalorian was the third. I think it was the third one where they go to a farming planet basically, or it was a farming colony. They're doing aquaculture,
mhm.
and
Oh
that
yeah,
was
that
the
one.
only other one that was like, wow, this is really TV. That's just dyed teal burlap with yarn through it for their costumes. That's bad.
Yeah, as much as I loved, as much as I liked Mandalorian, there were moments that felt very episodic. You could definitely tell they
Yeah.
played on tropes that have been around for a while.
Oh
And
yeah.
it was funny seeing Bill Burr in episode I think 6.
Uh-huh.
He was just that random white guy, the bounty hunter that had like the arm that came out of his backpack and like
Right.
shot the gun for it.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
that was weird, and that was definitely one of those very episodic. Why is this one here? It's fun, you know. It's a fine episode, but
Mhm.
to really kind of look at it, it's like this is filler.
Yeah, there's ups and downs. It's like okay, like Samurai Jack. Like even if you don't watch the previous 11 episodes, you could watch one and say, oh, okay, that was a good story beginning to end, and you
Right,
know you don't have to commit to a schedule. But at the same time, you do lose that. It's like, what was this even for? And and what I love about Star Wars in general, I think, is there's a lot of people that don't like the sequel trilogy, and I was underwhelmed by it. But for every part
yeah,
of Star Wars that you don't like, there are so many parts that you can like. So Star Wars
right.
Fallen Order just came out, and that was pretty damn good. It was like it's kind of a rip off of Dark Souls, but it was damn fun in my opinion.
Oh, nice. I'm okay with that. I was actually thinking about I want to play Dark Souls again, which that one, you know, yeah.
You played all three Dark Souls.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking no, not Dark Souls. I said it wrong. What was the first person shooter for Star Wars? Dark Forces.
Was
Is
it
it
Rogue Squadron or something?
Dark Forces came out. That was right around the same time as Duke Nukem and Wolfenstein and the first Doom. So Dark Forces came out. That was like Pentium level computers, if you remember those. And you may not. That's fine.
I think I
But
remember
that
the
was
game though. I
okay.
think I know what the box art looks like in my head.
Yeah, they had the was it Dark Troopers? It was the Shadow Troopers, was it? But whatever. Anyway, it was fun.
Yeah, there's just a lot to cover in Star Wars. You could go anywhere to any time period. There's a story to unfold, which is really
Right.
fun.
With all the different trilogies and the standalone stories, I absolutely love Rogue One.
I did hear that that was the best Disney made Star Wars film, and of course that Darth Vader cameo is amazing.
Right, the Darth Vader is definitely amazing, and of course, it's got a fantastic sequel. I really enjoyed that one. I think the big reason I really enjoyed it is very similar to why I like The Mandalorian so much. It had enough of the elements that go, yeah, this is Star Wars. Oh, that's fun because I'm a fan, so I recognize what that's from, but it's not important if I wasn't a fan. And there's a whole bunch of characters that I don't know, and I don't know their 30 years of history. And so I can enjoy the movie for what it was. Solo came out, and I had this mental list in my head growing up watching, you know, reading everything I can about Star Wars. Like, oh, yeah, they got that right. Oh, okay. Oh, that's how they handled that. And then next they're going to have to go do, okay, that was interesting. I didn't care for it. Just nothing but spoilers for me because I knew it already.
Yeah, it was very formulaic. It's in the same way that I just said I like vulnerable characters.
Right?
What I've heard from a lot of hardcore Star Wars fans is that Star Wars is not exactly the opposite, but Star Wars isn't Breaking Bad. It isn't Game of Thrones. It's more of a fairy tale-ish thing. It's about happy endings. It has
Right.
these timeless tales to teach. And with Solo, I feel like they took a step back because they were like, "Oh, we have this down to a science. We can just use plug this formula in, and another Star Wars movie that's another cash grab." And then boom, they lose a ton of money and it bombs. And it's like, okay, we got to backpedal. We got to make Star Wars feel magical again.
He definitely did the very formulaic with the first Star Wars. There's the things called the hero's journey, right? Joseph Campbell, as professor, figured this thing out, worked out what the majority of the stories being told were, as far as like Greek stories, especially, and true how the hero's journey works. And so Lucas very much followed that formula to the point that he talked to Joseph Campbell, and the two of them collaborated on the first movie to make it follow that formula.
Oh
And I think
yeah,
that's a big reason why the first movie worked as well as it did, because ultimately it's pretty cheesy. Flying through space with a farm boy that saves the galaxy. It works, but it's kind of cheesy.
yeah,
And the Pinewood Studios, the guys that were doing the sets in Britain, they didn't see how it was going to work. They're used to doing Doctor Who, and they're watching the stuff that's happening on set, not seeing all the effects or the symphonic music that they did, because at the time science fiction was always just thermions and electronic music, so they didn't have the impact of it, and they didn't, they didn't believe in it.
Yeah, for sure. I watched this whole video on how A New Hope. I heard
Right.
that it was saved in the edit. It was at
Absolutely.
first. Yeah, at first it was awkward. Like they would be doing the battle on the what's the rebel ship called? The one that movie
Uh,
starts off in.
the Tantive for the blockade runner, yeah.
Yeah, and that the scenes where the stormtroopers were fighting, or the rebel troopers were fighting Darth Vader, was intercut with Luke on Tatooine. And at first, when they showed it, when George showed it to Spielberg, he's like, why does it take me out of the action and just show me this random kid in the desert? Like, you need to restructure this whole damn film. It's crazy,
Yep.
and the magic of editing can do. It's the
Absolutely. Yeah, and the whole tension at the end with them zeroing in on the rebel base, that was all done in the edit.
oh
That
yeah,
wasn't the original script.
yeah, all the dialogue, it doesn't show them moving their mouths or anything.
Yep.
And I know Return of the Jedi, I know it's like the black sheep of the original trilogy. For me, it's my personal favorite because I just love the scene where Luke's talking to his father. His father lets his guard down for a bit, and he's like, "Father, he's like, it's not too late, you know, you can still change yourself." And he
Right.
kind of lets out a sigh, and he says, "It's too late for me, son." And I know the Ewoks throwing over the Empire, that's a hard pill to swallow, but those vulnerable moments, the fight at the end, Vader redeeming himself and taking the mask off, I think that was all the reason why it's my favorite Star Wars film to date.
Yeah, I loved it because back to why I did my channel, Return of the Jedi was a big part of it. I love rubber monsters, especially, and there was so much in the Jabba's palace that was a big influence for me to want to make rubber masks, which led to building props. So yeah, I'm definitely a fan of Jedi. If I had to rank them, I would put Jedi third out of the original trilogy.
Everyone likes The
It's
Empire
not
Strikes Back.
necessarily because of the Ewoks. Yeah, I love The Empire Strikes Back. And it also happens to be the only one of the only ones that was directed by a Directors Guild, union member, right?
Mm.
Union's the wrong word, but I can't remember his name right now. Ivan Kershner was actually an accomplished director. Not that the guy who directed Jedi wasn't accomplished. It was just different styles of people working on it, right? And then
Mm.
you can definitely see where it went with George directing the prequel trilogies, which are my least
Oh,
favorite,
oh
where he
man.
just surrounded himself with yes men. Sounds great. That'll sell lots of toys, you know.
It's funny. Someone after I watched Phantom Menace, I remember someone's like, "Tell me who the main character in the Phantom Menace is," and I'm like, I'm like, it's Liam Neeson is in it. Can you imagine if they got like better? If George had actually like pulled all the stops there and like he actually got to settle down and like have that as a competent character. Like I understand the comics can always go in and like make a cool side story where Qui-Gon's on
Right.
this planet by himself. Those side stories are always cool. For a lot of my friends, they don't enjoy prequels. They don't enjoy side stories because they're like, oh well, no matter how many side stories they make about Darth Vader, at the end of the day, he will have to die on the Death Star at the end because that's how the canon has it. And for me, it's like, yeah, that's true, but I don't think that devalues the cool like journeys other writers could make on how he got there.
Right. And I'll agree with you. I like the character, so sure, I'm happy to see more stories about Darth Vader. I'm excited to see the Black Widow movie, even though,
Yeah.
yeah, sure, the character passed away, and whatever. This at this point she hasn't. And at the same time, after 20 years or more of nothing but prequels coming out of, say, Star Trek, and Star Wars did the same thing. I am so happy that Picard's come out and we're
Oh yeah.
actually advancing the timeline. This is the first time, literally, since what Star Trek Enterprise, that or since Voyager, right? Since
Mhm.
that Star Trek is moving forward in their timeline. They've all been just rehashing the same eras and trying to flesh all that out instead of like, can we just go forward? You keep upping the technology to make things look better on screen, but doing it in a backwards way to try and show how cool it was when we had cardboard props and a pink light, and I was totally happy. It does. I don't need. Can we just go forward?
Yeah, I think that's how a lot of fans feel with Half-Life. Alanix?
Yeah, yeah,
It's
Alex is
it's
the character's name.
it's just Alex. That's man, that's a weird way to spell it. It's like, well, I guess the wait for Half-Life 3 has been so long that the best way to like introduce it is to get your feet wet and just like show this in between game.
Right.
Star
Um,
Trek Picard definitely looks cool. I'm not a Star Trek fan, but I think it's cool to see anyone reprise their role as an iconic character. I know that the
yeah.
studio has a rule where everything has to look 25% different or something. So the uniforms have to be a bit different, the ships have to be a bit different.
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't heard this rule. This applies to the new series and stuff constantly. Weird. I guess they're trying to keep them separate. I don't know. I've never heard that before. I've only seen the first episode for Picard, so I don't know if it continued on. But I was fine with the first one. It had some of the dialogue and exposition definitely seemed like it was a little forced and a little rushed,
Mm-hmm.
and it had a lot more action and fighting than any other Star Trek story I've seen. But overall, it's like, oh, okay, this is entertaining. I can go with this, and I'm happy to see the characters again. Yeah,
That's how I felt watching El Camino. It was like you get reunited with the Breaking Bad cast after 8 years. It's so bittersweet whenever like just characters come back after a long time, and it's you have to be really careful with it because it could so easily come off as desperate and forced. But hey, if your story's good, if your actors are on point, if you have a story reason for why they're so much older, then sure, why not? I mean, I heard
right.
that Blade Runner sequel was good. I still want to see it.
Oh, I thought it was great. As long as you like Blade Runner, because
Hmm.
as a sequel, just like Tron Legacy, both of those really nailed the feel of the first one.
Cool.
So if you don't like the first one because the pacing or the way it looks or the music, then you're not going to like the sequel because they did a really good job of continuing what the first one was. They didn't, well, so we're going to reinvent it. No, they didn't. They expanded on it and did a fantastic job.
It's been forever since I've seen the first Blade Runner. I just remember the quote everyone remembers where the I think the main antagonist he doesn't kill the protagonist out of like a moment of pity.
Yeah, it's Roy Batty, Rutger Hauer's character. He's a replicant, and he's talking about how he's done all these things. He's done all these battles. He's seen star cruisers on fire in space. He's seen all these fantastic things. But all those memories are going to get lost because he's going to die, and they're going to get lost like tears in rain. You'll never see them.
Oh my god, that's such a good quote.
It's a great quote.
That's
And I
crazy.
think a lot of that was improvised. There was something in the script about that back and forth a little bit, but I think Rutger Hauer had a lot to do with how that scene played out.
Mm-hmm.
That he was like, well, I'm this character that can only live to be like 3 or 4 years old, and then they die. But he's got this realization of stuff because there's
Mm-hmm.
the thing with there was an emotional inhibitor or whatever that's put into the replicants. They don't get too advanced as a bioengineered android. And so these replicants had broken that, and so they're trying to find out what their incept dates were, what their birth dates were, so they knew how long they had and if they could get around it. But anyway,
There's been so many stories about androids becoming like sentient and then realizing
yeah,
their mortality and being humanized that it's nice to see it done right. And when it's done right in such an old film, it makes you like feel sorry for all of the people who have been trying to do it recently and they just can't.
right.
Yeah. Vulnerable robotic characters, that's like a trope that I just really like for whatever reason, and I don't know why. There's just some
Okay.
tropes I really like. Another trope I really like is when you think a villain dies and they come back and they're like robotic.
Oh, okay.
Like Frieza,
Right.
anyone like that.
Darth Maul. No.
Oh, Darth Maul, yeah, where he has the droid legs.
He has a
I'm not
droid
sure.
lower half. Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's still canon because the Disney canon changed stuff.
They did. I think it is because I'm pretty sure he still had droid legs in Rebels,
Mhm.
and I don't remember if they didn't really show it off because he makes a little cameo at the end of Solo as a
Oh
hologram
yeah,
projection,
yeah.
and I think there's a hinting towards it. I think that he's got like a mechanical thing around his waist, something like that. There was enough, but they didn't really make it solid. And I was really happy it was still Ray Park in Solo doing.
Oh, they have the same actor.
They had the same actor, yeah.
Oh wow, I was watching that and I was like, huh, his face looks a bit different, but I guess that was just me.
Oh, he's older.
Yeah, that's funny. It's like you watch Better Call Saul. I always bring up Breaking Bad. I don't
That's
know
fine.
why, but yeah, thank you.
Oh gosh.
But you've seen Better Call Saul, right?
I've seen some of a little bit. I
Okay,
haven't actually stopped to watch it all, but I've
okay.
had so many people when I was working, at work, talk about how great it is and how everything was. new every time. Kind of the opening sequences were always different, and
Oh,
yeah,
okay. I won't spoil anything. Then I'll use a different example. In El Camino, like it's been 8 years. You can tell some characters are older, even though the canon might say otherwise. Like Jesse's
right.
jawline is bigger. That's
Oh,
cool.
okay.
That's actually Darth Maul, though. I didn't know that, and I think it was. I thought it was cool how Maul's droid legs they kind of looked like Grievous's. I think Grievous and Darth Maul
Yeah.
are like two of the best things the prequels produced, and that cartoon also the
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 Clone Wars.
yeah the 2D one
Yeah.
that was made by
Oh,
the
the 2D
Samurai
one,
Jack
right? The
guys.
one
Yeah,
the Samurai Jack guys, right? No, that one
yeah.
was great.
The fight scenes are great. I remember General Grievous chasing after the Chancellor, and like they're chasing him down the tunnel or whatever. That was so damn good.
Hmm.
And then she like uses the force on his cape and ties him to a subway thing, and then it like whips him. I don't know. It's been so long since I watched it. All I just
Me
remember
too.
my I just remember I looked up some clips and my brain didn't lie to me. It still holds up.
Oh, good.
It's always good when things actually hold up.
Yeah, definitely. As opposed to going back and going, oh, ice pirates. Oh, I love this thing as a kid. Oh my gosh. No, I'm done.
Yeah, that's crazy. Are you allowed to share whatever video you're working on next, or are you going to keep that a secret? Or I guess it's not a secret because it's in the polls, right?
Well, I don't really have a poll going on, but I did. I've got started a subreddit. Well, it's actually someone else started it, but they let me be a moderator. So yeah, I'm a moderator for a subreddit named after me. We posted a work in progress picture there. I'm working on the body unit for the Gundam RX-78.
Holy
So I did
crap.
the head a couple weeks ago, and now I'm building the body. And even though this video won't be out next week, it should be out the week after that. I'm just trying to get that wrapped up and finished this weekend, so I can get moving on the next build I'm going to do. So,
Is it going to be
because
wearable?
yeah,
Oh my God.
the plan with the Gundam is to make it fully wearable. I've got a friend who's a huge Gundam fan, and we made the helmet to fit him.
You are about
And
to make his day, his
oh
life.
yeah, oh he's actually coming to my shop in about an hour for another round of fitting, as well as he's doing all the graphics. We're going to vinyl cut a lot of the decals and stuff that go on it. We're making this as Gundam as we can, with having to change some of the dimensions on it to fit a human, right? Because Gundam are humanoid, but they don't fit human proportions.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
At the end,
yeah,
because they're supposed to like just sit in the head.
right. Well, the pilot sits in the chest, but yeah, just the legs are too long, the shoulders are too far apart, the legs are too far apart. You couldn't put a human in one, at least not a standard human.
A
Um,
standard human.
well, I'm sure you could find somebody you could put in there, somebody who's got 4 inches of armpit, you know.
Uh, sounds like my wife.
But yeah,
Do,
when we were talking a little earlier today, I was sitting there with a wood burning gun and gun. It's not a gun, but wood burner, and doing the panel lines on the skirt armor. So trying to get all that put together.
you think this is the most difficult thing you've worked on so far?
It's up there. It's up there because the personal scrutiny on it, right? I'm working on this thing with someone who's a huge Gundam fan, and we know that a lot of the Gunpla and Gundam fans don't have a lot of wiggle room with how stuff looks. It's either absolutely right or it's absolutely wrong. There's not a lot of gray area.
Hmm.
There's a number of different fandoms that do that. So that puts a lot of pressure, or I put a lot of pressure on myself because of that. Whereas normally it's like, it's made out of foam, it's cosplay, whatever, it'll be fine. If you know what it is, it's good, whatever. Um, the Half-Life was actually really difficult to get done in the time frame I gave myself. And that one, so far, has probably been the most difficult one to do for me. Just there's so many little pieces that went into it, and then I still look at it, and some of the rails that I put on the site, they're crooked, and that
Hmm.
bugs me. You can't really see it in the video,
Yeah,
and you can't really see it in person either, unless you really kind of pick it up and square it up against something. But it's like, dang it, that's not what I wanted.
I can't imagine the amount of scrutiny because it's like I'll just be drawing something and that's just lines on paper. Um, not to
No, it's
devalue drawing as a medium, but it's like
no.
to create this complex 3D shape and then see that something is off. That must require so much backpedaling to be able to fix. I can't imagine.
Right. Yes, there is, as well as since I've now put my creativity into a production timeline, there becomes this issue of, all right, That's wrong. How wrong is it? Is it worth half a day or more to fix, or do I just paint over it and keep going?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember I used to be so insecure about my art. I would have to like I would need my brother to talk, quote unquote, talk me off the roof, so to speak. But what helped
Right.
me was keeping a drawing that I was proud of on hand and looking at that whenever I was frustrated. Do you think? What do you think? What do you think in your YouTube lineup is the thing that you still stand by the most?
Probably like the Soul Edge, I totally love because that's getting back to the monster root that I've got, because it's just a giant monster sword. And that one turned out really well. There's very little on that one that makes me cringe.
Everyone likes the giant swords, like Final Fantasy VII, all that.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to do that too. I know that got pushed back to mid-April, but I did the fusion sword for DIY Prop Shop, so I want to go ahead and do the Buster sword for when Final Fantasy gets released.
Oh yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
yeah, everyone asked for it, so I was like, all right, I
Do
can
you
do that.
now?
It's kind of like a coffee table without legs, but sure, we'll call it a sword.
So that proposes an interesting question because like you might be eager to make that sword, but is it better to wait until the game releases? Because then it probably get a lot more views that way.
That's usually the thought, yes. And I've noticed that with some of the older videos, that when something new comes out, the interest will spike again.
Mm,
As well as if it's
mm.
horror related, like Jason and Freddy and stuff. Well, Halloween comes around, all those videos spike. Um,
Well, I guess
so
if
yeah,
you yeah, I that's cool. I guess if you really wanted to like make it, you could just record it and then not publish it until the game comes out.
right.
Although it seems like
And yeah, that could work, but my I'm barely ahead right now. The video that I'm going to put out next Wednesday is done, and it has been for a little while because it was a directly sponsored video and it had to be approved. So I'm actually working 2 weeks ahead right now, and I'm going to try to keep it that way for as long as I can because I've never been 2 weeks ahead. I'm always, it's Sunday. I'm painting. The video comes out Wednesday. So yeah, I'm trying to get things ahead as far as having something built and ready to go. Yeah, but I'm going to be doing some convention appearances here in March, so I'm probably going to lose some of my time, but at
mhm.
least I'm doing good right now
Oh, that two weeks
for
that
painting all that.
that 2 weeks
Yeah,
of buffer must feel nice though. It's just like
yeah, it does. That does feel nice, but at the same time, I put the pressure on myself, knowing that I can't just because I've done it before. Oh, I'm 2 weeks ahead. I'm going to just play games. Oh, wait, now I got to get something done because I've screwed off my 2 weeks. I'm just trying not to do that, and so yeah,
that pressure is why you're cut above most YouTubers though, because you got people who they don't feel that pressure. They'll not upload something for a handful of months, and that'll just be that. They won't have an uncomfortable feeling in their stomach. They won't feel that drive to get something like that out there.
yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. Yes, I did let myself lapse for like 6 weeks there at one point, and I think my the way my channel was working prior to my lapse, which was back in July, June, and where I am now, I think I'm finally back to where I kind of was before I let that happen, and it took, you know, 6, 8 months to kind of get the channel back up to speed more or less, and moving along and getting sponsors back because
It's
there's this dead space in my history.
6 to 8 months to get back up after a 6 week
Yep.
absence. Damn.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the channels I was art director for Smosh
Oh,
there
really?
for a couple of years. Yeah, because they were shooting. That happened to be in the same town. Um,
Hmm.
they pointed out that one of the biggest things they credited their success to was they picked a day and they put a video out every week on that day. And in 10 years, I think they missed one day. And they warned the fans beforehand because they knew it was coming up and it was something they couldn't avoid.
Hmm.
Um, and so they were saying that they felt that was a big thing for them for being successful, was that it was just clockwork. It kept coming out.
Yeah, I've heard
So,
that. I've heard that
yeah.
having a schedule that's predictable, like someone will come home from work at 2 p.m. every single day, and then in the back of their mind, they're like, oh, 3 p.m., that's when Odin uploads this, that, or the other, and I'll go ahead and watch it.
Exactly, and that's what I'm trying to do. I've uploaded it a couple of different times, and I especially watched DIY Prop Shop move around. Right, they definitely moved their times around as they were juggling all the different video channels they were running. Um, so I picked Wednesday because that's basically Odin's Day, right, as a translation for Wednesday. And then I did 10 a.m. because that was the one time that Defy Media was consistent with putting out videos. It was always 10 a.m. So I was like, all right, I'll just do that because they've got more money invested in it. There must be a reason. So 10 a.m. Pacific every Wednesday is my scheduled time for a new video to come out.
Yeah, discipline.
Yep.
What's the budget you think on like how the cat your camera, your lighting, like if you're comfortable saying like how much?
Oh, gotcha. Well, that was all stuff I collected over time. It's a lot like a great analogy is you go to your first con and you've got your basic cosplay, and hey, I'm Finn Rider, and yes, you look like him, but you're wearing a really basic broadcloth and your stuff is painted on. Well, that was the beginning. I borrowed a lot of equipment. I had some other friends that were working for a reality TV show doing home improvement shows, and
Mhm.
so I was able to borrow their cameras, borrow their lights, get some insight on how they were doing their network show. And so over time, I've purchased different cameras, usually for just a couple of $100 each. So at this point, yeah, I've got $2,000 worth of cameras, but I've got 6 cameras because a couple of them are backup. And then the lights are LEDs. Some came from IKEA, some came from our actual shooting lights from Amazon. And so there's a few $100s in that. So all my kit, all my gear, not counting like the yearly Adobe subscription for Creative Cloud, it's probably $5,000 worth of gear at this point
Damn.
that I'm using. But it wasn't something I ran out and bought all at once, because the
Yeah.
lenses cost stuff, right? The batteries cost. You've got cables, you've got memory cards. Something that surprised me: SD cards wear out. Now that I'm
Really?
using them daily, yeah, I've had a couple of SD cards start to just go, no, I don't want to work anymore.
Holy crap.
Right?
That's
It's like, oh,
crazy.
all right.
I
Go
never
ahead.
I don't think about electronics like that. I think about food like that. I never think of like
Right.
I don't look at my SNES still works. I don't look at that and say, okay, you got 40 years. Like
Right.
and like I bought this Razer keyboard, and in the instructions it says, "Oh, it has a lifetime of 30 million clicks each button until it stops working." I'm like, don't put a number on it because now
Right.
I press it, I'm like 29 million left.
Exactly. My DW keys are wearing out because that's my movement keys. And right.
Oh, those are probably long gone. This is probably going to be long gone soon.
That was really weird to me to have that happen. So that all becomes more like, as well as like my microphone cable. I have a wireless lav mic that I wear, right?
Mhm.
And it's a standard Sennheiser broadcast style lav. Well, it has a screw-on connection to where the microphone connects to the transmitter. And because it has that secure connection, because you don't want it to come unplugged during broadcast, it
Yeah,
can't spin within the plug the way headphones usually do, or microphones usually do on the consumer gear. So the cable ends up twisting against the plug because the plug can't move. And so I'm going through a microphone cable in a little less than a year. It'll wear out. It'll start fraying because I'm pulling it out of my back pocket or attaching it to my belt, and I'm just moving it, practically every day because I'm wearing it almost every day while I'm shooting,
yeah,
and so the cable wears out. And to replace that, it's $130, which on a yearly time scale isn't that big of a deal, but still, it's like I don't have $130 to run out and buy a microphone right now. And that's just the element and the plug, not the transmitter, not the receiver, not the plug that goes from the receiver to the camera. All those are separate.
yeah. It's funny how long a ways that good equipment goes.
Yeah.
It's you could be a channel that spouts nothing but good ideas and good lines, but the instant they hear that, the instant they hear you sound like a TV from the 1980s, they're going to be like, well, I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the two things that I think are lacking in a lot of early YouTube videos, and not just I mean, creators who are new as well as the early days of YouTube, um, assuming the microphone on the camera is good enough when it's not, and assuming the light that your eyes can see is good enough for the camera, and it's not. So you definitely want to have something to record your audio with, and something to better light what you're doing, whatever it is. You know, and I think those are two things that really help any channel. Everyone's got a good camera now on their phone. You can get better cameras, sure, but it's fine. You just don't rely on your phone's microphone to pick up your audio as well.
Yeah, phone cameras are crazy now. So,
Oh,
so outside of, we got about 7 minutes left.
oh, okay.
And I appreciate you sitting down with us. And by us,
Oh
I
yeah,
mean
you bet.
me.
Right.
By
Well,
us, I
that's all
mean
good.
me.
It's fun. We talked about Star Wars and fandom and things. It
Yeah,
wasn't all just yeah. So I built this thing and I built that thing. I don't know. It's been a lot of fun. Anyway,
yeah.
what's up?
So outside of like, what are you playing right now? Like video game wise, what are you playing? Like, what will you
Gotcha.
do on your off time?
My off time. Well, I just recently started playing Half-Life again. Half-Life Source because they rewrote the game, although it's got pretty much the same graphics. So I've been playing that. I actually do a lot of board games. So I play a lot of Settlers of Catan on my tablet, just as the board game app. I haven't played a lot of other video games. I would love to finish Lego Dimensions. I was buying and playing that while it was still actually new, and not
Oh
a
well,
dead game. I
dude,
just don't.
Lego Star Wars 1 and 2 are my childhood for sure.
Oh yeah, those are great games.
I think those are
Um,
the Lego games that really put Lego games on the map. I think they were the first ones.
I think they were. Yeah.
It started weirding me out when they started talking in the Lego games. I'm like, stop that! You're not allowed to do that.
Right.
Legos don't talk. This is unrealistic now. It was fine before.
Right. I don't mind that they're bending in humanistic ways. But, that's okay. But why are you talking?
It's like we've gone too far. It's funny. A lot of my nostalgia comes from that original Xbox game, Star Wars: The Clone Wars, or the Lego games, or the cartoon. And then
Okay.
when you get to the actual films that all of these things are based on, they're just not very good.
Right. Yeah, it's the issue of expectations, right? If I'm going to go see a movie or watch a TV show, if someone tells me it's good and they're excited to see it, that's good enough. I don't want to know anything else. Let's just let it unfold in its own pace in its own way, and I'll
Hmm.
enjoy it.
Yeah,
But when I have expectations or big feelings on something and I'm trying to relive that, um, or have the story live up to my expectations, that's when it starts to feel like stuff fails.
yeah,
And for me, anyway. And one of them is Ex Machina, right? Which is I've rewatched it a couple of times. It's a great movie. Um, the first time I saw it, I was in a rush to get somewhere. I had to go drive to get somewhere. So it had just finished being pirated and downloading, and I started watching the beginning of it because it's like, oh, I want to see this. And so I saw the opening, which really impressed me because there's no dialogue until he gets to the house, right? And so everything is being done in this weird. He's at work. He gets text messages. He gets emails. He gets congratulated from his coworkers. There's no dialogue. It's all screen and kind of fuzzy. And then all of a sudden he's at the house, and now there's human interaction and stuff going on.
hmm,
So when I finally got to watch the movie and everything's playing out, I'm waiting for, well, okay, but what are we going to flip this? And he's the AI, and she's just part of the test to see if he can fool himself into being thinking that he's not the AI. And then the movie just, was a hack and slash at the end, and I was horribly disappointed because
yeah.
you set everything up to where he was a computer to begin with. There was no human there. The hell, guys.
Yeah, there is a charm to going in blind as
Yeah.
possible, and especially with social media and just the computer and trailers being thrown in your face, it can be.
Oh
And
gosh.
even us just looking up reviews to see if a game's good before we buy it, there's just a mystique to it that is taken out.
Yep. I
Uh,
ended up, which was really hard to do because I'm building stuff for stuff that's coming out, so I kind of have to pay attention if I want to, right?
yeah,
For Rise of Skywalker, I think I saw the first trailer and then part of the second one. Went, yeah, I'm good. I don't want to watch more trailers. I want to go and see this and try to enjoy it as a movie, and I did
hmm,
because I didn't have any expectations for it.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it was fine.
I saw the saw 1917 recently. That was so good. It was
Oh,
crazy.
I want to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
At
a
least I,
very
at least I know
yeah.
very little about that. I mean, obviously I have some history, but knowledge, and then the way it was presented as trying to be a single shot-ish movie. But
Mhm.
that's the end of it. I don't know anything past that, and so I do want to go see that.
Yeah, definitely. There were definitely some hooks that I was very glad were spoiled for me, and I
Oh, that's
think,
good.
yeah, I think you'll definitely enjoy it. It's it's weird. I've been watching more film recently, but yeah, no, there's a. It's funny. I watched Rise of Skywalker, and it felt like a video game to me almost, where it was like they were doing side quests to get to the main quests.
Yeah,
Like, oh, we got this thing. Now we can go to this planet, and then that happened two
right.
more times. I do
Oh, and
love how Luke more or less uh, he catches the lightsaber because people were so mad he threw it in the previous film.
right.
He's like, "This is sacred. You can't throw this." I was like, "That's cute. That's funny."
um, I enjoyed how many of my friends didn't see. So the New Order, right? They capture Chewbacca and they wrestle him onto one of the ships
Mhm.
and fly off. And the big key there is one of the ships. There were two of them side by side on the planet.
Yeah,
And then, from behind a mountain again, sort of like my complaint in the beginning of the podcast here with the thing crashing behind the mountain. Now here's a thing coming out from behind the mountain and they shoot it down and, oh, we killed Chewbacca. It's like, no, there were two ships. And I literally had friends coming out of the theater complaining about what's the switcheroo? We saw them blow up the ship. There were two ships.
it's a
It
conspiracy
wasn't hidden.
theory. It's a conspiracy theory. There were two ships the whole time, and she accidentally uses Force Lightning for a bit, and
Yeah,
I was like, man, I want to see a good guy use Force Lightning so bad because Force Lightning is too cool to just let the bad guys use. That is,
right.
and I remember there's a YouTuber called the Critical Drinker, and he was talking about the scene at the end where they're deflecting Palpatine's lightning, and they're like, "Why doesn't he just turn the lightning off?" And he's like, "It's like pissing; it's hard to turn off in the middle. he can't, he can't just turn, he can't just turn the lightning off. It
Can't
would,
stop the stream. Oh,
it's-
that's awesome.
yeah. Say what you will about that movie. It was cool to see him again. We were talking about reprising roles. It was cool to see
Yeah,
that guy be the emperor again, and I liked that. I liked how his fingers. He was already elderly and fucked up, and then to see him like with this
even more
giant.
so.
Yeah, yeah, even more so. He had like
Yeah,
his fingers were gone. He had that giant robot thing attached to him.
right. He had some sort of like GLaDOS slash Borg machine, Borg Queen machine hauling him around. Yeah.
Yeah, and they had all those voice cameos too. If you go to the
Yeah.
credits, they had Liam Neeson, they had Samuel L. Jackson,
And Ahsoka. Yeah.
yeah, Ahsoka.
Yeah, Ahsoka from the Clone Wars, the animated Clone Wars. She was one of the voices.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's some cool representation right there. They even like took from an animated portion of the universe. That's really awesome.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That was really cool. Did I hear it in when I saw it? No, I missed it. I heard some of the other ones, but I was looking up later, going, "Oh wait, but she's in that? That's cool."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. And I was really happy that Snoke, they create this new character, and who is he supposed to be? And then they kill him off in the Jedi recreation scene that's in the second movie. Whatever. There's a lot of like copying of the original trilogy that this sequel trilogy did. It's like, okay, guys. It
Yeah.
was neat that okay, so they're trying to do the Emperor clone, and he was just a failed Emperor clone. Great, I'm good with that. That was, and again, it wasn't a big deal. He was just sitting in a couple of vats in the Emperor's area. And that's
Yeah.
okay, that's where he came from. Fine,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. They did a quick and concise write off for him, didn't they?
Yes, they
And
did.
it's a fine balance. It's like you're paying. There's a fine line between paying homage and then straight up copying. So like maybe The Force Awakens followed A New Hope a little too much beat for beat
Right.
when it could have backed up a bit.
Pretty much it could have, yeah. And then I felt that The Last Jedi very much followed Empire a lot, but it pulled in parts of Jedi. So I was really hopeful that the third movie wouldn't just be Jedi beat for beat, and it kind of wasn't. A little, but it kind of wasn't. So that was good.
Yeah,
Um,
a lot of people hate The Last Jedi, but say what you will, but That was a cool planet. It was like everything's white. You take one step, it's like the salt or whatever, and then it's
Right. Yeah.
red
The salt.
underneath.
Yeah.
I'm
The,
like,
the red soil, the salt layer on top. Yeah, that was very cool.
yeah, I'm
No,
like,
there's the Jedi. Last Jedi was a beautiful film. It was. A lot of the design stuff in it was great, and I didn't. I didn't hate it. Um, but yeah, there was definitely like there's something missing here.
yeah, it's funny how much Mark Hamill like he pretty much went on tour saying how he disagreed with everything that happened to his character.
Right.
He's like, why would he be? Why would the most optimistic young man in the galaxy become this bitter old person who says that the Jedi need to be destroyed and then try and kill his nephew in his sleep?
Yeah. And then had another friend that I didn't pick up on it. Talked about how it's totally a Dragon Ball Z move, Goku move at the end, or not Goku, but one of them where it's projecting himself to go be in the fight.
It's funny
It's like,
they make new force powers when it's convenient, and
oh,
the the
absolutely.
the force is largely undefined, so I don't mind when like it doesn't feel, pardon the pun, it goes from the force to the forced, and
Yes.
I
No, it's
did.
perfect.
It's cool seeing Baby Yoda use force healing in the Mandalorian. It's like, see,
Yeah.
look, it's not just in the main movies; it's in this too.
Yeah.
and then you,
Making something up here.
and then you see that clip from episode 2 where Anakin's mother is dying in his arms, and the mom. I saw a meme where like the mom says, "Why don't you force heal me?" And he's just like, "Sorry."
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they didn't come up with that one in time. Oh, what time is it? Oh shit. All right. Well, thanks for joining me today, man. I really appreciate it.
Hey, you're totally welcome.
Um,
Definitely.
yeah, I'd love to have you on again at some point in the future. I gotta have other guests on though, so people think I have some semblance of a YouTube career.
Oh, okay.
I need to have all these popular people on here so they think that I actually have a name for myself when I'm secretly just hiding in the guise of other people's success.
That's what we all do. It's all good.
You're like, what do I say to that?
No, that's yeah, that's great. Early on, I was excited when I had some people that wanted to talk to me because they had more subscribers than I did, and now I'm seeing it's very much the other way around, and I get it. It's like, yep, that's.
That's cool. I appreciate it. It's like you giving me a little shot in the arm, like an investor or something.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure how much people will watch this in the end, but it's funny because like you reach out to a lot of these content creators, even if they're very popular, and you ask them for a Q and A, and they'll just say yes. They're a lot more approachable than like a Hollywood celebrity or something like that. You have anything you want to plug? Anything you want to say as a closing statement?
Gotcha. Let's see. How much of that is going to remain in the podcast? And how much are you going to edit out? Or are you editing anything out? I don't care if you
Uh,
edit anything out. I haven't said anything wrong.
Um, honestly, the only thing I'm gonna edit is like if one of our voices is way louder than the other, then I'll adjust the audio that way.
Oh,
That's
okay, cool.
And then like the beginning when I was setting it up, that's pretty much the only thing. So you can go ahead and plug whatever merchandise or video you have coming up.
Buy my stuff. Go to my Patreon and buy my stuff.
You follow me?
And so please subscribe and um,
Smash that
right.
like button.
So well, I know I'm not sure when the podcast is coming out. I'm excited that I'm going to be doing a bunch of cons starting up again this year where I actually get to be the guest, and that is enjoyable and new for me, and that's very weird as being someone who's always been behind the camera, basically, who wanted to just kind of make things to make things. Now they want me to be the guy on stage talking to everyone. Okay,
Oh, that's
that's
cool.
that's not something I expected.
You must have your foot in the cosplay community though. They probably come to you all the time, like, "Hey, can you make me those Mercy wings from Overwatch?"
Right. Yeah. But I actually don't do commissions. The few
Oh,
times I ever agreed to do it, horribly late. Takes me forever to get them done because I'm just so focused on trying to get my YouTube channel going. So,
yeah.
or maintaining. So I just,
Some of those people are really picky too.
yeah, well, rightfully so.
You imagine someone
Uh,
sending those Mercy wings back, and they're like, "I don't like this, this, and this," and you're like, "Are you kidding me?"
exactly. Are you kidding me? Um, so yeah, I have a Patreon. Patreon is fantastic for me because I actually pay rent for the shop where I'm at, and Patreon is nearly paying my shop rent at this point, which is
Oh,
amazing. Um, As far as merch, I don't have a whole lot. I've started doing T-shirts through Teespring. That's just pops up around the YouTube feed itself. Um, Otherwise, yeah, I'm Odin Makes on all sorts of social media. .com, odinmakes.com will take you to my YouTube page. I've got R Odin Makes on Reddit. I have Odin's Makers as a Facebook group. Try to, I've got an Instagram that I post stuff to. That's probably my most active social media at the moment is Instagram, but I'm
Yeah.
doing my best to keep up on the
Yeah.
others.
So if you miss him at that point, then you really just aren't paying attention because like 11% of the internet is Odin Makes pages on social medias. So so if you aren't looking, you have to be blind at that point.
It's fun having Odin is my actual birth name. It's my real first name, and I
That's so
have
cool.
yet to physically meet another person with that name.
I
Yeah.
met a dog with that name.
Oh, I've met a few dogs, a number of teddy bears, and a cat. Yeah, but the cat was great because it was a one-eyed cat. Sorry, cat, but it's perfect name for you.
And any medieval god thing, that's always a cool name. All right, well, thank you, Odin. I appreciate it. I'll go ahead and edit the crap out of this, and hope to see you on again sometime. And
Absolutely.
thank you to the 12 people listening as well. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you dozen are great. Thank you. The early people are the best because that's the grassroots that gets things going. So thank you guys.
Yeah, when I win the lottery, they will be the people that I remember
Yes.
for sure. All right, thanks, man. Appreciate you. Have a good one. Okay.
Well, yes, you too. Good night.
Night.